An important episode for you today. This one that's near and dear to my heart. Um, Something important. Stick around for a sec. All right, so you know how YouTube is. The more you click on something, the more you view somebody's content, the more it pops up. And I've been interacting with Mike from Baseball Collector and is it Wade Boggs Collector? Starting to learn some of the channel names quite often, so their stuff's popping up everywhere. So I was watching an episode today, and well, I say it's an episode. It's a video of Mike kind of going through at his ranch, showing the property before he leaves, building a new house. And before that, he's talking about a collector who's jumping out of the YouTube game, creating content. And I'd planned on doing an episode about this before then, but it kind of gave me some framework to look at to kind of frame what it is that I I think about collecting and the hobby and its purposes. So, a lot of you know collecting is something that gets ingrained into you, right? It's something that makes you feel passionate. Sometimes it's more than a hobby. It can almost become an obsession at times. But it's something that allows bonding, right? You can make friendships and relationships and get to know people you normally would not be able to get to know, different economic levels, different parts of the country, other countries, things that normally would not bind two people together. Sports and trading cards can do that, right? Because no matter where you are in the world, there's another Mickey Mantle fan, right? And that alone can give you an opportunity to get to know someone, to connect. And I don't know that it's correlated, if it's all the time connected. Just one of the things that I've noticed, and this is a little bit of a rant, kind of just a me thing today, so be patient. One of the things I've noticed is that the deeper I dig into a lot of the collectors, and this doesn't apply to all, nor am I implying that it needs to be all, but it seems that there's a lot of Christians, a lot of believers who collect cards. And that's, I guess it was a surprise at first. It's a hobby that seems to be filled with that. I don't know if it's just because it's a safe means of having fun, or it's not looked at as gambling as much as, going to the casino or whatever. But it seems like there's a lot of people who represent the faith as well as represent the card hobby. And that's not always a bad thing. With those things, you always have kind of the celebrity level. You put the pastor on a pedestal, and eventually he's going to fall off, right? He's going to do something wrong. It's the same with the card hobby, right? Even though these people, they're Christ followers, they're Christians, they collect cards, and they put themselves on videos, eventually they're going to do something to make somebody mad, right? It just kind of, you open yourself up to that when you put these things out. And some people do a better job than others. Some people make it a dynamic function of what they do. I think of Ty, because I watch his episodes on everything. He always, in his videos on Chasing Cardboard, tries to include the story, which is, what he claims that the whole thing's about. And I agree. And he goes in and he allows these people to tell their story and why they're collecting and what they do. Excuse me. And oftentimes there's a faith-based narrative that goes along with that, and he feeds into that because he's also a believer. I've watched a few interviews with him, and he goes into that. It's something that's also important to me. The church itself it struggles, just like everything else. The church local, down the street, people around there, they sin. It's what we do. They don't always represent themselves or their church or their hobby or anything else the way that they would like to, And I find myself in that same boat. I'm a believer. I actually have a degree in Bible, attended a Bible college for several years to try to, affirm my beliefs, what I think. And, I look back over my 20s and I was a believer then, and some of the decisions that I made or circumstances I found myself in. And I think, what an idiot, right? And I'm sure most of us can relate to that. You go from straight and narrow, everything's on course, especially if you live in a small town. It's pretty easy to fall into some trouble, right? So, and then it's, oh crap, I'm an idiot. I've been making stupid choices for so long, And I talk to my wife all the time about the subject of lifestyle evangelism, right? We've kind of dug ourselves into a hole of you always have to act a certain way and be a certain way and pretend that everything's perfect, because if you act like everything's perfect, somebody might ask you, why do you act like you're perfect? Is it because of Jesus? And those conversations, well, I won't go into that too deep. Myself personally, I find that discipleship in the church, which is, for those of you who are not church people, it's the act of someone usually older than you because of more experience who kind of takes you under their wing, and you become, they're your teacher. You become more like them. That's what the disciples were to Christ. They followed him. They tried to become more like him. And we kind of do that in the hobby as well, right? We have, certain collectors, certain people that we look up to in the hobby, not just because of the cards they collect, but because the way they handle themselves, what they say on camera, the way that they open themselves up to criticism from not just the way that they collect, but their personal beliefs. And that can be hard because there's trolls everywhere, right? I mean, there's always that guy that you made mad when you're 26 and drunk and being stupid that, he's a hypocrite or he did this. And yeah, we all did, right? I mean, we're not perfect. That's the point. And so what I found is it's pretty similar. In the hobby, you have people who want to reach out. They want to kind of build that network, that relationship. It's actually discipleship. It's modeled after what Christ did with the disciples. And it comes natural for some people. Others, it's a struggle, right? You don't want to reach out. You don't want to seem pushy. But that network is still there. That desire is still there. And one of the positives I think this hobby has is that it opens up opportunities for that connection, as I said, with people that you normally would not be able to connect with. So as they see you and they see your imperfections, right? They see you don't have, you didn't get that card or some dealer made you mad, that you're human, that you make mistakes, that you're just like everybody else. But at the end of the day, you still rely on Christ to not just to save you, but to fulfill you. And that's where I struggle. So, in this episode, I'm going to touch a little bit about, my story and kind of where I fall. So I was one of those people who, went to church at a young age and, made a decision when I was either 7 or 8 in an Awanas program. If you're, from small town areas, Awanas is everywhere. It's a Wednesday night program. And one of the leaders there led me to Christ. And, it was great because, what did I really know at that stage in life? So fast track through that. I'm churched. I'm going, everything's fine. Get to be a teenager. Everything's fine. I'm involved in a lot of church activities and going on missions. I started my first 501c3 nonprofit when I was young, as a teenager, and learned that world, how to form a corporation, how to do my bylaws and my, 501c3 application and scheduling and sponsors and donations and I had a real passion for reaching out to people. What I found is that actually most people don't have that passion, come to find out. They just pretend to, and then they sit in the pew on Sunday. So as a result, I went out into the world thinking, hey, you're going to go change the world. And I got beat to death, right? People just let me have it. Life let me have it. I think at this point, I'm up to over 45 friends of mine who have passed away since I graduated high school from either drug overdose or car crashes resulted from drugs or alcohol. And the town that I'm from, it's a great place, but there's a lot of challenges, right? And so I got the opportunity to go to Liberty University, loved it there. And believe it or not, instead of kind of getting more into the Christian bubble, I actually popped it. I kind of figured out pretty quickly what the world was actually like and how ineffective the church actually was. So I decided, hey, I'm gonna change this. I'm gonna go out there and try to reach people. And as I said, got swallowed up. So you get into your 20s and you're kind of at a crossroads, right? You want to make friends. You want to find a wife and get married. You want to also be a good man. You want to have kids one day. You have all these priorities that you if you put it on a list, it makes sense. But if you put it on a timeline, it's kind of hard, right? You don't. Nothing ever works out like you think it should. God's timing for things is never, it seems to be never what my timing is. So it's tough, and not just on me. The people growing up now, kids growing up now, I can't imagine the difficulties it is with, sin and lust and technology, that you have an open world to everything. And that was just forming when I was a kid, right? I was the first generation that came through with social media and unfettered access to the internet. The whole world is at my fingertips. And it opens you up to a lot of exposure of things you probably never would have known about. So I go through my 20s and I have a group of friends, small town. The only thing to do there is drink. And, you can just count day after day after day of, 6 days of good decisions or bad decisions, 1 day of good decisions, right? And it wasn't on Sunday. So I go through that for years. And at this point, I have such bitterness towards God. I had all these plans, right? And things were supposed to go great. And they fall apart. And then, fast forward a few years. And I get this job that I'm currently in now, construction manager. And I meet my wife. Have some kids. And I start to see the timeline that I thought was supposed to happen line up just in a whole different timeline, right? It's completely different. And what I found is that I struggle to find joy in things. Especially on TikTok, I get drilled hard because, my tone is always very sarcastic, very serious, and I have a very sarcastic sense of humor. So I basically laugh internally, and it drives my wife crazy, right? Because she's, she'll send me these videos on something, and I just shake my head, but I'm laughing at it. I'm just not. You can't see it, right? So I put these videos out, and people are like, "Oh, he's so serious," and that's true. I take a lot of things very seriously, but I struggle to find joy in everyday things. It's just my burden to carry, right? A lot of it's because of stupid things I've done in the past. A lot of it's because of just my personality, but a lot of it's because I struggle to find things that I enjoy to kind of take the struggles of the world off of me. And what I found is, and I'm not trying to claim that these two are correlated or joined in any way, shape, or form, but for me it seems to be that way. And probably the prayers of a good wife. But the more that I get into the card hobby, the more joy I'm able to find in other places. And it's because it allows me to escape in a healthy way. I love to sit and go through cards. I love to sit and sort the cards, sleeve the cards, top load. I love to research into the players and the timelines of their careers. And it's a de-stressor for me, more so than just watching TV or, other things. And it's almost freed my mind to be able to experience joy again, because it's something. Before this, I really couldn't find anything that I enjoyed doing, because I had spent so many years just not having anything to do that made sense. You just drink or you do something stupid or, go out till 6 a.m. This allows me to have healthy fun with people who also enjoy it. And as I get into it, I find mentors or people who have been in the hobby for a very long time who also have the same passion as I do. They love Christ, they love their family, they love card collecting. And it's almost that simple, right? And that's the stage of life that you were in used to be about the only thing that you could relate to with other people, especially if you had kids. If you had couples, you hang out with people who have kids, right? This allows me to have people that I look up to say, hey, he's doing this, so I want to do this also. Or he's able to be involved and make friends in this hobby, and he's also a Christ follower. It's not taboo. It's not looked down upon. It almost, the two are almost married to me, although they're not dependent upon each other, if that makes sense. So, fast forward to now, we finally found a church that was pretty good, and we've gotten really involved in that church. And it's funny because as I go, I find people in the church that are card collectors, and our relationship gets 100 times better. I find coworkers that I work with who I normally, we relate for work, but we have nothing personal to talk about, right? We just get off work and go home. This has allowed me opportunities to speak and get to know these people that I normally would not have gotten a chance to do. And one of the huge things, the reason I bring this up, and I know it's a long rant, so I appreciate you guys kind of staying in, is even if your intention for making these videos happens to be, and I'll say mine. So, my hope is one day I'm developing a website, cardshow.net, and an application. It's going to take me a long time, but it's something that I like to do. And I'm hoping that one day this creates an opportunity for me to push that out. But my biggest hope is that it allows me to build some relationships and networking in the hobby, that I get to know some great people. I get to eventually travel down and go to the YouTube, creators thing that they do at the card show each year. Get to know kind of the passions of those people and what they do, what works. And then it also provides an opportunity to provide a witness to who Christ is and what he does, in my life. If you're not creating content for something other than just money, I can't see the fulfillment. It's almost like why? Especially in this niche market, right? You're not going to be, millions of followers and some huge thing. It's just not going to happen. You can build a slow and steady, base of followers to add value. But at the same time, you're probably not going to get it rich, right? So there has to be something else. I would say that if you're going to create content for people to watch and you're trying to add value to their lives, if you're a believer, if you're a Christian, it's almost hard not to. Because of those relationships, because of those opportunities that you have to get to know someone, or older collectors in the hobby who also have been a Christian for a very long time, went through the same struggles as you in life, raising kids and having bills, and it allows an opportunity for discipleship from people that you respect in the hobby as a mentor, right? And also allows you an opportunity to bring in other people that say, hey, I just got into card collecting. Well, great. It's a lot easier method. This sounds cheesy, but it's a lot easier method than saying, hey, we're having this fish fry down the street, blah, 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 and you should come out and bring your kids. You have a reason that is external from work or Sunday school or church to say, hey, we can kind of network through this and spend time together, even if it's online, and live life together where somebody can actually see, Jesus in you. And that's enough reason for some of us. I think the desire to make it big, or the side hustle, and I've been trapped in this before. A year ago, I was searching for ways to trying to find extra money. Things got better, circumstances got better, and I don't have that large stress anymore. But there was a lot of pressure. List cards on eBay, try to get them out as fast as you can. As quickly and as efficiently as you possibly can to make a profit. And while I still will sell cards to fund the collection that I want, which, recently has been a lot of vintage, my goal is not that. I'm here to enjoy it. I'm here to build those relationships, to meet people and have something to talk about that I normally don't want to talk about because I'm not a social person. I don't want to go out and have these friendly dinner dates all the time and talk about random crap that I don't care about all the time. But if you get me out and you're going to sit down and talk about cards or sports or Hall of Famers or teams, I mean, I'll do that all day. I'll do that for multiple days. And other people will too. And that's kind of where we have an opportunity to have that connection, to have that, I collect Mickey Mantle, but I also love Jesus. And if that's not a priority for you, I understand. If you're not a believer, that, I'm not going to say, go get Jesus right now. I hope you do, but it's a little bit of my story, kind of what I've gone through, and why I think that the hobby is more than just how much a card's worth. That's a plus. I mean, yeah, we all want that. You'd be crazy not to. You want your collection to be worth something, but the real worth is being able to add value to someone else's life, and for them to add it to yours. So, just my perspective. This is a unique episode, just kind of something to get to know me a little more. I know I'm a new creator on YouTube. I put out more of like I'm frustrated content on TikTok and kind of this is what's going on and this is what I think about it. But on this one, I kind of want it to be more directed, more intentional, not just pulling up a phone and recording a random thought. So appreciate you guys so far who have subscribed and liked the videos and commented. I really enjoy the comments, and I mean this sincerely. Or even just your opinions. If you think that I'm wrong, I don't care. I could very well be wrong. This is just what I've learned so far. Relating my world experience to the card hobby. So feel free to comment. Don't be scared that I'm going to jump back at you or anything like that. Again, if you don't know Christ, I really don't know that I would have survived this long without knowing Christ. We don't always get along. I disagree with the majority of things he chooses to do with my life because I'm in control, right? I wish. But he doesn't give me my way. And most of the time it ends up to my benefit. So I encourage you to at least consider or look into it. And things are not just going to change overnight. If you decide that you want to, become a Christian, it just doesn't get easier. The burden that's on your shoulders, the pressure, that does get easier because you have someone advocating on your behalf. You have somebody that's on your team. And for a lot of us who, have kind of been lone rangers for a long time, that goes a long way. So if there's ever any questions, I check my comments and messages and stuff pretty regularly. So if you want to discuss that or, whatever, just reach out. I'll get back with you. So thank you guys again, and we'll catch you on the next one. See ya.